welcome to Sideways. This week, we're talking about the impact of isolation on our mental health and the particular difficulties it poses for active and recovering addicts. We also talk about gratitude lists and Martin's paint-splattered spectacles. Oh, and I sing some American rock because Martin likes it so much. Isolation.
All right.
All right. You're late. Where have you been?
I can't hear you, mate.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can now. I couldn't, though. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just asking you. I can only see the top half of your face.
Oh, can you?
Oh, that's better. I can see you now. Actually, it's quite. I regard that as the best half of your face.
I can get a bit closer to the mic. I was hoping it would make the quality better. How did it turn?
You don't know that the quality's no good anyway, do you?
I don't know. What was the last one like?
Well, the quality of the recording of your voice was better than mine, disappointingly.
Was it?
Yeah.
How did that work out then?
I don't know, but it's not something that was terribly pleasing.
Well, I'm quite pleased with the outset, or the outcome, I should say. But yeah, that's down to you. You're the editor.
Yeah. Anyway, how are you coping with isolation?
Well, that was going to be the subject matter of this particular episode.
Really? What, isolation?
Yeah, very much so. I thought it was a very It's bizarre that you.
How do you feel about me stealing your thunder constantly?
Not happy, to be honest. I think you've got some sort of snooping device that's going on in my flat, and you're making things hard for me. But I thought it's a pretty relevant subject matter anyway, and it was obviously just coming into. We're just starting week 2 of isolation now, and I think it's weird, isn't it? It's bizarre.
It is bizarre, but it's been very good for listener numbers.
Has it? Yes. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I know a lot of people have been saying to me, "Oh yeah, they've taken the opportunity to start listening to some of the previous ones as well," which is quite nice. Yeah,
it's been a very heavy week for Sideways.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. I suppose it's the circumstances are helping it in some ways.
Yeah, every cloud and all that.
Yeah, I know. But what struck me was that there's an old saying in recovery circles that an addict on his own is in very bad company.
Oh, and, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I suppose this isolation is bringing it home. It's bringing it home to a lot of people at the moment. Obviously, everyone's having to come to terms with the situation and the stresses and strains associated with it. But it's sort of particularly problematic for those, I think, that have got addiction and mental health issues. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, definitely. It's I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but I was talking to someone the other day about how being in a kind of crisis like this is a bit like the grief cycle. You know, you go from shock into a bit of denial, and then there's this period of kind of sadness and depression that can go on for much longer than you imagine it's going to go on for. I mean, without wishing to be I don't know what the word is, a killjoy. I wouldn't harbinger of doom. Yeah, harbinger of doom. I wouldn't be surprised if we're heading for a kind of a pretty widespread mental health crisis.
Well, it's strange because I had a message this morning from someone. I just sort of checked up on her to see how she was coping, and she messaged me back, and she was saying that she reckons the end of all this there'll be a lot more call for marriage counselling, rehab, and Weight Watchers.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't think I'm going to be short of work anytime soon.
I don't think you are, and I reckon our groups are going to start to swell in numbers somewhat as well.
Yeah. The other thing that I've noticed is a huge increase in the number of people making sourdough bread. I
haven't noticed that at all, mate.
No,
certainly not me. I haven't got
you don't make it. All you do is eat it, don't you?
I know. I find it rather nice, but I haven't been able to come across and get any.
How is the battery in your car?
Have my battery in the car? Yeah, that's all well. That's the mobile mechanic was able to come round and sort it out for me.
No, I can always leave bread on the step for you if you want to come and collect it.
I don't know if that's allowed, mate. Is it?
isn't it?
I don't know. I don't know if that would be considered a non-vital excursion outside the home.
Well, if you haven't got any food in the house, it'd be fairly essential, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I could take it down Aldi and put it on one of the shelves for you if you like.
I could get away with it. You could hide it on one of the shelves and tell me where it is.
Anyway, I don't know why you're getting off the point of isolation there again.
Yeah, well, yeah. Surprising, isn't it, how you drag me from pillar to post?
So you were telling me about tell me about. Presumably, this is one of the people in group who is feeling that there'll be a great increase in people's requirement for various mental health services.
Yeah. It's sort of that just came in this morning. I'd already completed my notes. I've had to quickly re-scribble some bits and pieces on my notes to bring that in because I thought it was quite relevant. But I think that there's different problems arise for those that are sort of currently in active addiction.
Yeah.
And those in recovery, and those people that are just starting their recovery journey. I mean, must be a really tough time to start. And I'm a member of quite a number of forums, etc., online, and there's people posting they're just starting. They're just starting out in troubled times. I can imagine that if they can get through this, things are going to be considerably easier going forward. Where there's sort of less mental health issues that are going to impact upon it. But I've got to take my hat off. And we've always said there's never a bad time to start, but certainly this is going to be quite a tough choice at the moment, don't you think?
Yeah, it is. Although I'm just kind of thinking now, and I'm sure you're right that it's a different challenge depending on whether you're in active addiction, whether you're just starting your recovery, or whether you're kind of well into it. But I'm just thinking about those differences. And I imagine that if you're new into recovery, aren't there some ways in which it makes life easier?
It's just more difficult to get the sort of group dynamic which helps us through in some of these.
Okay, yes, yeah. So you don't have the face-to-face support that you might otherwise have.
No, exactly. I mean, there's another old saying in recovery that it's all about connection and not isolation, and this is right at that opposite end, isn't it? It's right in the isolation area, which is again, it's going to make things more difficult, but. It also, you've got to think about those people that are still in active addiction, and I can't imagine the sort of mental anguish that they're going through at the moment. Can you imagine
when you were at the height of your drinking? Would this sort of situation have caused you a lot of difficulty? And if it would, what sort of difficulties would it have caused you?
Well, for me as an alcoholic, it would be ensuring that I had enough alcohol on board to get me by. I know we've talked about in the past that stockpiling of your drug of choice is a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, it just trying to get enough to see you through is quite tricky. And we know if you have more in the house, then you tend to drink more. And so it is quite tough. So it would have been an essential trip out to go and get the vodka.
Yeah.
But I'd hate the anguish of thinking, my God, perhaps what if I go to the store and there's none left, or what if I can't get out, or it's and I can imagine which is I always count myself as a bit of a lazy addict, really, because there's drug dealers everywhere. My drug of choice is easily bought up on the street, isn't it?
Well, what do you think? So in that situation, if this were a time when you were in active addiction and you had sort of turned up to Sainsbury's local and there hadn't been any vodka in there, what would you have done?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it doesn't bear thinking of. I mean, I'd have gone far and wide trying to find some.
Yeah.
But it would have been tough. I imagine. I mean, if
it would have made you drink more, I imagine.
Well, yeah, it would have. Well, yeah. Once I finally got hold of it, it would have been absolutely.
No, but I mean, I would have. I'd imagine that the stress of the thought of running out, and being isolated and not having enough drink probably would have exacerbated the problem, wouldn't it? Because you'd have got through your supplies even quicker.
Yeah, you would. I mean, it's an ever-decreasing circle. But I can imagine those people that are using illegal drugs at the moment must, dealing with drug dealers in normal circumstances is tough enough, but right now it must be really tricky. I mean, the word on the street at the moment is that the supply chain is breaking down, and there's a resultant sort of increase in the price of stuff like heroin on the street. And there's reports around also that fentanyl is making a bit of a stride into the drug economy as well, where it's being either cut with the heroin or it's being sold on its own. And we know fentanyl is it can be, and there's various grades you can get, but it can be they reckon up to 100 times stronger than heroin. So if you take it in the same proportion, we've seen overdoses, all over the country where people are taking fentanyl instead of or alongside heroin. And if that is becoming a bigger part of the drug market at the moment, it's going to cause all sorts of problems.
So if there's a disturbance in supply chain, and why wouldn't there be? Because if you can't even get tinned tomatoes, then it's fair to assume that it's going to be trickier getting heroin.
Exactly. Yeah.
Isn't that? Is that? Do you think likely to kind of filter through to an increase in petty crime as well?
I don't know. Yeah, there's always a link between the drug use and crime, but I don't know. It's
if the price is going up.
Yeah, it's going to have that effect, isn't it? We've talked in the past about sort of minimum pricing on alcohol and that sort of thing, and the effect that has. People do turn to crime. So I can imagine that's going to happen. But I imagine it must be quite tricky being a criminal at the moment as well out there. There's nowhere to hide.
Wouldn't be very easy to do housebreaking, would it, at the moment?
Not really. No, they're all occupied, aren't they?
It's really ruined. It's really ruined their market, isn't it?
It's a disgrace. They must be disgruntled by it all.
Enough to make them turn to drink.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because there's another quote that I found. Actually, I was doing a bit of research for this.
Yeah, as you.
It reminded me a little bit of you because it said isolation is the worst possible counsellor.
Oh,
which is.
Why did the worst possible counsellor remind you of me?
It was just the association, mate. Don't think anything by it. But that was. I found that quite. It was written by a guy. He's called Miguel, not San Miguel, but Miguel de Unamuno. Oh. Yeah, I hadn't heard of him either.
I'm sure that's an absolutely spot-on pronunciation.
Yeah. He was some sort of essayist, and philosopher in the late 19th century. He's a Spanish guy, but I quite liked that.
Isolation is the worst possible counsellor.
Yeah, it goes. It fits alongside nicely, doesn't it, with that statement about that I used earlier on about.
You've forgotten it now, haven't you?
Yeah. So I looked down there about an addict on his own is in very bad company. I was leaving you a gap for editing there.
Yeah, I'm not going to edit that because I think that's funny.
Why is that? Because it makes me look bad.
Yeah. No, that's true because I often have conversations with people about how any sort of decline in your sense of well-being, a kind of a drift into depression, is actually a disconnection from the world and from yourself.
Yeah.
So, connection is so critical to positive well-being, a positive sense of well-being, whether you be in recovery or, just struggling with the perils of being isolated at home with people you don't usually spend that amount of time with.
Yeah, I'm actually at home on my own, obviously, as you know. But it's surprising how many people have contacted me. I've been spending a lot of time doing video calls, etc. I'm speaking to my daughters on a sort of daily or every other day basis, and the rest of my family and friends suddenly coming out of the work.
How are you coping with still running groups?
Well, we're doing at the moment. We have an online Aspire to Be meeting every evening. Mm-hmm. At 7:00. Yeah. Which is it's on the Zoom platform, the same that we're using now, and we have a sort of a feelings check, and we check in and see how each other are getting on, and sometimes it can be a little bit hectic where people are talking over each other, but generally the numbers fluctuate, but sometimes there can only be sometimes only 3 or 4 of us on there. And it can be it's quite easy. but I'll tell you what there has been. What's been reported about is the increase in drinking dreams. You know, we've talked about that in the past, and now we could sort of link that with stress and things that are going around us. So it's not surprising. I mean, I've had one myself, and
you floating?
yeah, I wasn't floating. No, going back to our last episode, there was nothing floating about it. I just had this dream that I'd been drinking again, and I haven't had one of those for a long time. And so I think it's got to be linked with sort of a slightly heightened feeling of anxiety and stress and that sort of thing. Is that your phone beeping in the background? I can hear there.
Don't worry about it though, because it's kind of that's isolation living, isn't it? That's what happens. You know, people trying to get hold of you all the time, make sure he's still alive.
Yeah, but you always have a proper pop at me if my phone goes off and we're recording an episode.
Yeah, that's different though, because that's live.
Oh yeah. I see.
These are difficult times. I can't
stop that beeping noise. You're heightening my anxiety now, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's stopped now. I've stopped it, I think. Oh no, I haven't. Hang on.
Yeah, well, good. At last, you've got yourself in order.
It's gone there. I don't think it will happen again. I was just going to ask you a question.
Go on.
So, as you've been running groups virtually over. Oh no, it's not going to stop. Over. I don't know how to stop it now. As you've been running groups virtually, have you noticed anyone, particularly that's struggling with this?
Yeah, everyone.
But you have you found that people are all kind of struggling in the same ways?
Yeah, no, really. I mean, it's the feedback about the groups has been really good. The people saying, "I'm so pleased to be able to, to get on and have a chat with someone about how they're feeling." So, yeah, it's there were again. There's from what I hear, and I haven't heard it particularly within the Aspire community, but certainly there has been a lapse. A bit of a spike in the lapses in the recovery community generally, sort of worldwide, if you like.
All right.
People are sort of turning back to some of their old ways to cope with this. So it's had a detrimental effect on that.
That's a shame, isn't it? I mean, I suppose in many ways it's not surprising, but there's such an important emphasis placed on trying to deal with day-to-day stresses and anxieties in a different way than you would have done with drink.
Yeah.
But then when you hit something like this, it's like another level, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's unprecedented, really, the times we're in, and so it was an inevitability. But I think by trying to keep as connected as we can, we can try and sort of limit that. And I think it's strange because sort of isolation is something that I remember, when I was in active addiction, it's something that I sort of craved.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's once addiction, it takes a grip on us, we drift towards isolation, for a number of reasons, really. I mean, it's, for me, I was sort of embarrassed about the way things were turning out for me, I suppose. And I didn't want people to see me in the state that I was in. But also I felt that, the more isolated I become, my drinking sort of increased, but there's no one there to have a go at me about it. So I quite liked that. I was able to indulge myself fully in that. So, it's, but the problem is then once you get into that isolated state, it prevents us from moving forward, doesn't it? You don't have any personal growth at that point.
No, it becomes self-fulfilling, doesn't it?
It does, the isolation then can increase your addiction, or the level of it. And then that level of addiction then increases your isolation. This is horrible sort of cycle you can get into. And so, it's when I was in active addiction, I wouldn't have minded this situation as long as I could get my vodka. Everything else would have been as pretty much normal. I've sort of had a practice for this because I spent.
That's interesting because I was going back to what you were saying at the start that, there are different challenges that isolation presents to people depending on where they are in that. I hate the use of the word journey, but I'm going to use it journey. Whether you're in active addiction, whether you're new into recovery, or whether you're experienced in your recovery, And, you just talked there about a way in which, in a sense, if you were already isolating in active addiction, this wouldn't actually be that different for you, would it?
No, it wouldn't. No,
if you were new into recovery, then as much as there are some disadvantages, i.e. you can't have the kind of physical connection that maybe you would need from a peer support group, but at least in this situation, you are forced away from your usual habits, aren't you? You can't go down the pub with your mates anymore.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
There are probably pros and cons.
I think you're right.
Where you are.
I think you're right. And going back to what I said, sort of near the start of this, that it's a situation which is, although I don't envy those people that are starting their journey out, or starting out on their journey. If the time is right to stop for you personally, it should be done regardless of what the circumstances are surrounding it. So, and if it is the opportunity to make a sort of holistic change to your lifestyle, then embrace it. That's for sure. No, I agree. But, looking back, I sort of isolated between sort of 2009 and 2011. So I did a 2-year lockdown on myself. So this is a breeze.
It's interesting you're talking about giving a practice, because I was talking to someone the other day about how it's important in this sort of situation not just to think about what we've temporarily lost, but also to think about what we still have. Which is also a very important part of maintaining recovery, isn't it? Gratitude. So being grateful for what you still have in your life, rather than just focusing on maybe all the things you've messed up while you've been in active addiction.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great thing. I remember when I first started my course with Kenwood Trust. You'd write your gratitude list, and you'd do that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And although they would, a lot of things would be the same from day to day, there would be, you found when you looked back over your notes, a fond aim of notes, when you look back over your notes, you could see that your gratitude list was getting longer as time went by on that sort of rehab course that I was doing over the 3-month period. There was more things coming into my life that I was grateful for. And you're grateful for really small things, and it was really nice. And writing it down, it gave me a reference point going forward.
Yeah, you just answered my question actually, because.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, one of my questions was going to be, as your gratitude list got longer, I was going to ask you if you noticed that it was also focused on seemingly smaller and more trivial things, because to me that is a sign that the notion of gratitude is really taking a hold, where you can feel genuine gratitude at something really tiny that you feel really happy about, whether it be if you go out for your one walk a day now and you see the buds coming through on the trees, you might look at that and you might say, well, okay, this is a terrible situation, but spring's coming, the world's still turning. There's something very kind of simple about that sort of gratitude and getting a lift from that, rather than feeling that gratitude has always got to come from something that's kind of big, that's significant.
Something material. I think you're absolutely right. I remember, I don't know if we'd spoken about it before, but I remember the guy came into group, and he was he was about 6'6". He was huge. He was very intimidating. When coming into groups, he strolled in. I'd never seen him before. He came in. He had a big old Stetson on, a big long leather coat. He looked like a proper gangster, and he was massive. And I thought, oh God, I'm gonna have trouble here. And he sat down, and he was going through his story, and he was a drug dealer, or an ex-drug dealer from Beirut. Okay, yeah. And he was one of the hardest people to do, and he had the deepest voice, and he was very intimidating. But he sat down, and it turned out he's one of the nicest guys you could ever come across. But as hard as he was, on his gratitude list was, he said he'd started to, he'd walk down to the local pond and feed the ducks.
Yeah,
and he said, and it was so distant from what he'd ever thought possible in the past. But he said he got real joy from it. That sort of bears that point out. It's just those tiny little things that suddenly become really important or really joyful.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's noticing the joy in small. It's not just about noticing the joy in small things, but it's noticing the joy in small things that are still available to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Well, some of those things were there all the time, weren't they? We just didn't appreciate them.
Absolutely.
There's an old a saying from Buddhist philosophy, it asks a question, does isolation lead to depression, or does depression lead to isolation? And again, it's this circular argument again, what comes first? And I think it's a cycle which you can jump on at any point, can't you? Really, it's like being on the circle line on the train. You can jump on at any station. It just keeps going round and round and round.
It'd be best to avoid the circle line at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, probably not a great analogy to use.
No, you're right, and. The thing about isolation leading to depression is it can do, but it doesn't have to.
No, it doesn't. No,
but depression definitely will lead to isolation. You can be isolated and you can be happy in your solitude, and that is very different from being lonely. And that is a very clear connection with recovery as well, isn't it? Because recovery is all about mindset.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Recovery is all about the way you think about your situation, the way you think about your life, and the way you think about yourself.
It is. It's sort of strange because there was a couple of days ago, I started to feel a little bit jittery, really, a bit unsettled. I can't remember why. Well, no, I do remember what it was because it sort of started off where I've got this external hard drive on my computer, and I was trying to get some stuff off of an old computer onto the hard drive, and then transfer it from the hard drive, then back onto a different computer. And it started to transfer stuff across. It was all going well, and suddenly it just shut down, and the hard drive was corrupted. I can't get stuff off of it anymore. And being alone, I was starting to go into a tailspin about it and catastrophizing how bad it was, and I could feel my mood swinging very quickly. And it's something I hadn't felt for quite some time. So I was grateful that, when I went on to the meeting in the evening, I was able to talk to people about this, and it sort of lightened the load a little bit because there are ways around it. It's things I can do, and I can get the stuff I need from elsewhere. But it was at that point, and it was old habits, I think, that I'd started to become invested in during this isolation. Some of my thought patterns were going back to my old ways, and I had to pull myself around a little bit on that one. I didn't like it, so now I try to have a normal day as possible. Yeah, I think the way I've counteracted it. I was listening to Stephen Fry talking about this on telly the other day. Obviously, he's bipolar and he's got his mental health issues, and he was saying about make sure you get up at normal times you would, have your shower as you normally would, and make sure you have the right eating times. Go for a walk, do some reading. In my case, making notes for the podcast, and limit your exposure to social media. All these sort of things, which all seem to be quite positive messages about, making sure you don't go back to your old behavioural types. Because I could quite easily slip back into those moments where I didn't really know what time it was, what day it was. And I could get up very late and just laze around doing nothing. So, and I could feel that starting to happen to me. So I sort of pulled myself around on that. So I do make sure now that I structure my day properly.
Yeah, that's important, because when you feel yourself slipping back to that sort of state, then that is a state that you associate with a particular time in your life that was very.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah, very much so. And it didn't frighten me, but it gave me a bit of a jolt. And I thought, no, this is not good. Another quote I came across, which I think you might be interested in, was it's by a guy called Franz Kafka. He was sort of this German. He was sort of a bohemian novelist, and he said that isolation is a way of knowing ourselves.
Yeah,
I wasn't quite sure how to interpret that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were talking about this last week. Well, no one else will have heard our conversation last week because we haven't broadcast it yet. We were talking about this last week when we were talking about leaving silence in conversations, because it's in that silence that you have the opportunity to know yourself. You're listening to yourself, listening to your own thoughts. So there is an opportunity in isolation to be with yourself. And, a lot of the time, if we're with other people or we're in the house on our own, but we've got the radio on or the television on, you're not really properly with yourself. So it's quite hard to understand yourself better, to come to know yourself better when there is other distraction. Whereas in the silence of isolation, there's plenty of opportunity to really become more connected with yourself. I think that's what Kafka's talking about.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's certainly to me. I know, knowing myself, I'm happier with that now. But I can imagine if I was in this situation, a few weeks into my recovery, I still hated myself a lot. And the last thing I want to do would be to sit down and think about me. It'd been awful having to sort of dissect what had happened to me so far. I wouldn't have liked it.
And essentially, that is the work. That's the work of therapy, because therapy is it's partly about identifying the parts of ourselves that we find unacceptable and finding a way to embrace them, because you can't jettison them. If there's something about you that you don't like, and your feeling is, well, I just need to get rid of this bit and I'll be okay. Well, you're never going to do it. You have to accept the parts of, we have to accept the parts of us that we like and accept the parts of us that we don't like, because that's the only way that we can become whole, and we can only really care about ourselves if we're whole. Yeah,
but that's the bit I had trouble with. I think because, I'm better now, a lot better now, but early on in recovery, there's nothing I liked about myself. There's nothing, I couldn't see anything positive. And it's only through the benefit of a lot of hard work, really, but time has been a big factor as well. And I think, for anyone that's listening to this that has addiction problems, I'm sure will relate to that. And hopefully if there are people listening that are just starting out their recovery journey, even though you don't like that word, I don't know why you don't like that word. Is it a bit like...
it just feels like a cliche, doesn't it, journey?
It is a little bit cliche. And it does remind me of a dreadful American rock band as well. So I understand your angst there. Because no one likes that.
I've forgotten what I was going to say now.
Yeah, I've just forgotten what I was going to say. But anyhow, so anyone that is on this journey, just starting this on this journey, it's possible. It is. It's going to take a little while, but you will start to like yourself at some point. And I'm all right with myself now. That's
what I was going to say. It's important to recognise that part of the reason you drank was because you didn't like yourself.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It becomes self-fulfilling. There's something that you're trying to get away from that leads you into drinking in the first place, and then what happens is you're drinking, and the destruction that you reap because of your drinking causes you to like yourself even less. So it's about having, the necessity to break that cycle and give yourself an opportunity to kind of see yourself in a different light. Have you finished your notes now?
Yeah, I have really. Yes.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what you clearly do see yourself as someone who thinks it's all right to come on and do this podcast with me with spectacles covered in paint.
Well, these are my painting, my work spectacles, but they were the nearest. I have sort of pairs of glasses laying all over my flat in different places, and these are the ones I picked up. But yeah, they are quite painty. I quite like them though.
Quite painty.
Yeah, well, see, luckily we're not doing this on a video. I'm assuming you're not recording this video as a video, because that would be a bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's only an audio
podcast. Video, but I won't be putting the video out, so you'll see with me.
Okay, that's good. Because otherwise, I'd have put on a posh top.
You got a posh top then?
Not really. No, I think I've got a Ramones top on at the moment.
Oh yeah, you have got a Ramones top on,
yeah. Anyway,
it's been Reading. Do you remember?
I do remember seeing Ramones at Reading, and it's quite surprising that this T-shirt I got in Primark last year.
Yeah,
I was thinking, we'd been to see the Ramones in the late 70s, early 80s. It would have been, wouldn't
82 it was.
Early 80s, and then nearly 30 years later, it comes back as the name and the logo comes back as a fashion item.
That was the day that you dropped, that was the day you dropped a bit of pizza on your jeans and it rotted a hole in them.
Says a lot for the food at Reading Rock Festival, doesn't it? Eh?
Yeah. Anyway, I've got to get back and do some other work now. So
yeah, good.
Nice chatting.
Good. And you, yeah.
All right. So look after yourself in isolation.
I'm going to try to, mate. Yes.
And I'll talk to you next week.
You take it well easy, won't you?
All right. See you later.
Take it easy.
All right.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work, visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can email us with any questions or to let us know what you think of the show. And finally, we want to thank you for listening and ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.